Welcome to the Probate Nation. My name is Richard Ruddy. I'm the host of the show. People are living longer thanks to good health care and healthy lifestyles. But as we age, not everyone remains as sharp as they were years ago. And frequently a loved one, a son or a daughter, is called upon to take on the responsibility of helping their elderly parent with financial and medical decisions. There are many decisions to address in caring for an aging parent, from where they should live, meeting their personal care and medical needs, giving them a social life other than TV, and much more. Years ago, an elderly parent would move in with a child and her family, and those decisions were addressed by the family. But in recent years, that has changed, and that care is now often managed from across the country, from an adjacent state, or while the parent resides in a local nursing home or assisted living community. As more and more seniors strive to age in place at their home, families are hiring caregivers to help them with the daily care of that loved one. And with the need for caregivers outpacing the caregivers available, this has become a difficult undertaking in two ways. Finding a caregiver that is available to help your parent, and more importantly, finding a caregiver that is right for your aging parent. In our show today, we will hear from two caregivers who will share with us their unique insights and suggestions as caregivers who deliver care to your loved ones each day. Our first guest is a caregiver that works with the Griswold Home Care franchise in Alexandria, a business that provides home care services to seniors and adults with disabilities throughout the communities of Fairfax County, Alexandria, and Arlington County. She previously worked as a nursing assistant for 9 years in hospital and nursing home settings. While working as a caregiver, she earned a bachelor's degree in paralegal studies from the University of Memphis. Our second guest is a certified nursing assistant who works for Thrive at Home, a company that provides one-on-one care to seniors in their homes throughout Northern Virginia. She also works in local senior living communities. In 2015, she represented all Fairfax County caregivers before the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors at the Direct Support Professional Appreciation event. Please welcome Joy Watt and Sue Savage. Joy and Sue, that's a lot. You guys are busy. Goodness gracious. Yes. Well, thank you for coming and having sitting down with us today and talking about this really important subject about caregivers. Well, let's begin, Joy. Why do people become caregivers?
People become caregivers, I would say, because they either have a heart for people, they want to help people, and you have to have the capacity to be a caregiver. It's a very important job. You have to be able to handle people well, care for people well, and that's basically why you become a caregiver. You just have a heart for it.
That's a big thing. It's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Now, Sue, what characteristics in a person make for a good caregiver?
I would say you have to have a lot of patience. You have to be kind. You have to be understanding and very empathetic.
Well, I guess so, especially with you dealing with older folks.
Definitely.
Who are maybe more set in their ways. So, Joy, tell us how and why you chose to pursue a career as a caregiver.
Well, my mother was a nurse, and I've had nurses on my mom's side. 3 aunts were nurses, so I knew I could do it. And I picked it because at the time I was in a transition from previous jobs due to recession, and I knew that becoming a nursing assistant would be something I could do and that would help me and my family provide. So it was a mixture of things of background and necessity.
Okay. And Sue, how about yourself? How did you become a caregiver and why?
For me, I started off as a concierge at Sunrise Senior Living, and I was always like the quiet one, and it just helped me kind of, get exposed to like other residents and people, and just, I've always been a person that loves to care for people, and it's just something I love to do, care for other people.
Sounds like the job grew on you.
Definitely.
Well, let's talk about what a caregiver does. Let's begin to kind of break that down. So Joy, what are ADLs?
ADLs are activities of daily living, and basically it's things that most people take for granted, as far as brushing your teeth, dressing, feeding ourselves, moving from one place to another, mobilization or transferring yourself, toileting, going to the bathroom. So these are just basic things that we do every day that sometimes, depending on handicap or sickness or just age, it becomes more difficult.
And does a caregiver help with ADLs?
Yes, we do. That is actually one of our sole responsibilities as a caregiver, is to assist the elderly or maybe the young or just anyone who needs assistance with those.
So that's a focus of yours?
It's a main focus.
Okay. Sue, let's talk about instrumental activities in daily living, or ADLs. What are those?
Cooking, driving, medication, but we do not do those things.
Okay, well, let's talk about, so in the IDLs include like shopping or keeping track of finances and stuff like that,
Yes.
Or driving. So does a caregiver actually take care of these IADLs? Okay,
No.
so do they do light laundry?
Yes,
or
we
like
do.
some light housekeeping maybe?
Yes, we do.
They do some cooking?
Yes.
Okay, driving. Do they actually manage medications?
No, we just do reminders.
So you remind them about medications?
Yes.
Okay, so it's good to understand. Now, you don't help with finances, though?
No.
Okay, good. That's
No.
So now, Joy, but a caregiver often does provide other assistance besides ADLs and IADLs, like their emotional support,
Yes.
listener, those types of things. Tell me a little bit more about those sort of intangibles that you guys do.
Sure. It depends on the client or resident, but we do offer also companionship. You know, depending on if a lot of clients are homebound, so they need, you know, conversation. Sometimes, you know, like to watch TV with a client, play games with a client, those sorts of things to keep them kind of happy, try to at least assist with their happiness as best they can to keep them from being depressed.
Sure.
And make them feel they're still important, because a lot of times when people are shut in, so to speak, they do feel like they are shut in and that the world no longer cares about them. So it's important to make them feel that they are still important, even though they may not be working the jobs that they had or raising their children anymore.
Okay, well that's good. That's good to know. Those are the important intangibles.
Yes.
Important. Let's turn to some of the things that the caregiver does not do. Okay, so Sue, I'm going to ask you some questions because kind of like a direct examination in
Yes.
a courtroom. But does the caregiver administer medicines?
No, we do not.
Okay, so what you really do is a caregiver will actually do reminders, but
yes.
someone else is going to have to organize those medicines.
That's right.
Correct. Does the caregiver give medical advice?
No.
Okay,
we
that's
do
a
not.
no-no. Okay. Does the caregiver cook for the family?
Not for the family, for the client.
For the client.
Yes.
And does the caregiver do laundry for the family?
No, we do not.
Okay.
For the client.
So the key thing here is that you're there to take care of the client.
That's right.
And that's one of the things we're going to bring in some of the common misunderstandings as we transition to that. That's our next topic, is common misunderstandings that occur with the caregiver's activities at the house. So let's talk about some of those common misunderstandings. Okay, so Joy, what are some of those things? So the family thinks that you know all the answers?
Some family members think we're their therapists. They come to us with personal problems that we're not equipped to do that, and that's not our position. It's definitely important to feel comfortable with your caregivers and have a rapport. That's definitely essential, but you know, we're not there to take care of all of your problems and be a sounding piece, because sometimes that it could be too stressful for us, and it can put you in a situation of being of a liability for both yourself and the caregiver.
Okay, we talked a little bit about we don't do laundry for the family. You're not cooking for the family. Have the family meal ready for when they come home at night. And it's important for the family to understand these boundaries. Isn't that right, Sue?
That's right.
Yeah, we want to make sure they understand that. So, do you find that it becomes a problem where the family may offer you money to do things that you're not supposed to do or you don't do?
Yes.
Does that arise?
Yes,
How do you typically?
It does. For me, anything that happens that makes me uncomfortable, I always call my supervisor and let them know what's going on. So usually they'll talk to the family and let them know if,
Get things straightened out.
Yes.
Okay. What about, Joy, what about clients who want to talk about financial matters? Is that something that that the caregiver can get involved with?
No, it's not. I have had a client who wanted to do that, but I informed him that that is not something that we're to do, and that it's really not safe for him to do because you can't talk about your finances with anyone. But that is not our position to handle your finances.
And given the environment today, I got to ask the question. I mean, how about harassment? Is that an issue that you run into in the household?
Nursing in general, sexual harassment is very prevalent.
Especially in the home?
In the home, mainly with male clients. They have a drive and a need, but we're not there to provide assistance with that. So sometimes you have to let them know that, no, I will not do this or that. You cannot watch certain things while I'm in the home. You have to wait till I leave the home. But it's prevalent.
How about, had anybody ever offer money?
Yes.
Inappropriate things?
Yes.
That's really...
And you always have to turn it down.
Of course.
You do, unless you put yourself in trouble, you know?
Sure, sure. So those are things that, common misunderstandings, I think that should go without saying that that's not covered by the caregiver role, but,
right. It's true.
But apparently it comes up, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's talk about hiring considerations. Sue, what are some of the considerations that a family should take into mind when they're going to hire a caregiver?
The caregiver's personality, how they look, how they dress. Sometimes you wouldn't want somebody that just, you know, rolled out of bed to take care of your mom or dad. So,
sure.
You know, their history, because some people, they've worked with a lot of residents with dementia, so you have to have a lot of patience. So you have to feel comfortable with the caregiver.
Sure, okay. Well, Joy, let's talk about that. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages of hiring a caregiver privately? In other words, hiring it directly through the family.
As opposed to through a company.
Through an agency, yes.
An advantage would be you wouldn't have a middleman per se. You would be able to maybe negotiate prices and services, because basically the caregiver would be a business person. That's a main advantage, the prices. Disadvantage is that if a caregiver wants to go on vacation or she gets sick, it's on the family member to find a replacement quickly, as opposed to if you're going through a company, they can just call, find someone that's from their staffing pool and cover them quickly. So that's the main advantage for working through a company.
So the main disadvantage is, the main disadvantage of working directly. Now let's talk about some of the advantages, Sue, and disadvantages of hiring an agency. Okay, so what are some of the advantages of hiring an agency?
If there's an issue, you can also talk to the company, and you know they'll be able to fix it for you. But usually, if you just have one person, you can't really, they can kind of, if you have a middle person, they can kind of convince or talk to that person and see what the issue is, and then you guys can fix it.
Okay, so I guess the other advantage, as Joy mentioned, is if with an agency, is that if someone wants to go on vacation or become sick, then a person they have people that they can pull in there.
Right.
Now, what's a disadvantage of using an agency? Is it just price, because it costs a little bit more?
It is pricey. It is pricey.
It's more than hiring. It costs more than it would otherwise cost to be hired directly. We won't discuss prices because those vary. Okay, so that's good to know. So there's some things to consider there as far as how we would go about getting someone to take care of mom or dad.
Right.
So let's talk about some of the key factors that we turn now to some key things to consider in order to have a successful caregiver engagement. Okay, so it seems to me that we talked about that it's important to have a good understanding of the caregiver's rights. And we talked about that during the pre-interview. Yeah. So you want to talk a little bit about that? What is that? What are you guys getting at when you talk about that?
With the caregiver's rights, I feel like sometimes the client, we always talk about the resident's rights. We never talk about the caregiver's rights. If you're not comfortable working with a certain client, you don't have to. You know, there's certain things, sometimes when you work with a client, they think because they're paying you, they can do whatever they want to you, say whatever they want to you, and you have a right, to let your supervisor know and tell them that, I don't feel comfortable with working with this client.
So you have a right to be respected, of course.
Yes.
Joy, you guys mentioned when we were doing the pre-interview preparing for this program that talked about caregivers being the hands and feet of nursing.
Yes.
What do you guys mean by that?
Well, basically what we mean is in nursing, you have different levels of nursing. You have nurses, nurse practitioners, maybe even doctors, I would say, because it's healthcare. Nursing assistants or caregivers, basically, we're the ones that are more hands-on. We're giving you your baths. We're the ones brushing your teeth. We're the ones feeding you. We're the ones that are coming and checking on you to make sure that you're okay. Whereas nurses do that too, but a lot of times they have more paperwork they have to take care of for the legal ramifications of the job. We usually, you'll see us more. Even especially in the home health field, we're the ones that are there. Nurses come and they make sure your medications are okay and everything, but they go on. We're still there to make sure that you're comfortable, make sure that you're safe, make sure that all your needs are being met. So we're more hands-on.
Okay.
So that's what we mean.
So the other thing we talked about, you guys mentioned to me about caregivers' rights, talked about that that you must stay within the scope of service. So Sue, what did you mean by that?
Well, just like we were talking before about medication, you cannot give medication. So just like the light cleaning, light cooking, those are the things you're supposed to be doing, not anything else. Like if they have a pet, you know, it's not your responsibility to take care of the pet as well.
And it's not your responsibility to polish the silverware.
No.
Okay. Now, you mentioned something about, is there a union for caregivers?
Here, no. There are unions. Like I said, I've lived in Tennessee before, and there are unions within nursing homes, which it can be good to protect caregiver rights. So I don't know about here, but they are.
In some jurisdictions,
some
they
jurisdictions
might have,
they are. Yeah.
But and that probably mostly for inside of nursing homes and assisted living facilities, probably.
More than likely, yeah, definitely nursing homes. I know for sure.
Let's talk a little bit about how important is it. Again, we're working within the context of how to have a successful caregiver engagement. Okay, so how important is it, Joy, to have a good personality fit between the client and the family and the caregiver?
It's essential. It's very, very, very important that the personalities mesh well, because for one, depending on how much time you're spending with that resident, if there's a constant conflict for personalities, you're not really going to be able to take care of your resident. They're not going to want to deal with you, and it's going to make it more stressful for you to want to actually give the care. Some residents need a more assertive personality. Some need a softer, meeker personality. Some want someone who is bubbly, and some others, for some people like that, it actually makes them more nervous if you have a lot of energy. So it's very important that those personalities mesh. Not saying it's going to totally cater, because you can only, ask for so much, but it's definitely important.
And the thing is, you're serving two different people here. You're serving the person you're caring for,
yes,
but also how you deal with the family as
exactly.
well. So there's two different lines of communication you have to focus on.
That's
so that has
exactly
to work in sync with both of those.
Yes.
Sue, how about the importance of good communication between the caregiver, the family, and the client? How important is that?
That's very important. I know from experience, a lot of clients that I've worked with, when I'm working with them, they'll say everything is fine, but as soon as a family member comes, they're more vocal. I don't honestly know what it is, but sometimes they'll tell you, oh, I'm not in pain, I'm fine. But as soon as, I don't know if it's like, sometimes they just crave more attention for the family members to come and see them often, but definitely they are more vocal when the family members come over to visit.
That's true for some reason.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, that would be challenging.
Yes.
You have to sort of keep your patience about you when they do that. Jill, let's talk about the importance of a caregiver being reliable to show up on time and provide the needed services. What do we mean by that?
You have to be, as far as reliable, you have to be very reliable and dependable, because they're waiting for you. If they're needing someone to come in their home, they're paying you good money to come to their home, they're expecting you there. Because depending on the resident or the client, they could be on the floor. If you're 30 minutes late, they're on the floor 30 minutes later, longer than they had to be. Or if there was if they're having an emergency, and you could be there to give them a Heimlich maneuver, or if they're not a DNR or give them CPR. You may
Yeah.
have saved their life. Most times that's not the case, but you never know. Every day is different. So, and really, it's a respect thing, and it's you know, if you're wanting, some people like to get up a certain time of the day. I took care of an older lady. She wanted to be up at 7 o'clock. Because that's what she's always done. So it's trying to keep the norm, what they're used to, their routine, to keep things going. So yeah, but it's very important to be there on time and dependable.
Okay. Well, that's true, because when people leave someone at home, they're expecting someone to be there by a certain time, and they've got to leave for work. They want to make sure they're there.
Yes.
Sure. Well, we have a few minutes left in the show. So this is a time when we've really covered a lot, and I wanted to ask, we talked about this, you know, to share some final thoughts, you know, that you want to really emphasize about the role of the caregiver and how people can work well with caregivers, how to hire caregivers, whatever you think is important, you want to really emphasize. And so, Sue, I'm going to start with you.
Okay. Well, I just believe that you have to find somebody that has a bubbly personality, if that's what you're looking for, and someone that's honest, trustworthy, and you know, just try and get to know the person. You don't have to just, it's not set in stone. So maybe even if you hire this person, see how it is for a little bit, for a few weeks. If it works out, then keep the person. But if it's not, then you have to, you know, get somebody else that's gonna be a better fit.
That's a good point. How about yourself, Joy?
I just think it's important to focus on communication. Not only the beginning of hiring a new caregiver, but also throughout the relationship if you choose to hire one. Also, boundaries. It's important to know as we've already discussed, what the boundaries are, so for both parties, there won't be too many surprises. There will always be surprises in healthcare, but to kind of minimize that, and so that the transition and the relationship can go more smoothly. So it's very important to make sure that both sides understand what the boundaries are, and to make sure that caregiver can communicate well, because if he or she cannot, it's not going to go well, and it's going to be they're going to be less of a help to the client and the family.
Those are good points. Yeah. Good points. Well, we covered a lot of great information today about caregivers. I want to thank, you know, Sue and Joy both for taking the time and coming and talking with us, you know, for sharing all this great information and for, you know, imparting a lot of great suggestions and helpful suggestions to the people in Northern Virginia, and certainly to the members of the Probate Nation. So thank you very much for coming in. You know, with the aging of our population, you know, more and more seniors need assistance in making lifestyle and medical decisions. One of the most common requests from the elderly to their children and any court-appointed guardian is that they be allowed to live in their home as long as possible. Our show this evening provides insight into the work that a caregiver does to make that possible, from what they will do in caring for your loved one, and more importantly, what they will not do. It also focuses on the need for good communication between the family and the caregiver, and if applicable, the agency that placed that caregiver in the home. And finally, it shines a light on the benefits and challenges of hiring a caregiver privately versus through a local agency. The caregiver provides an incredibly important service to your loved one by allowing them to lead as fulfilling a life as possible while they age safely in the home filled with memories of their life with you, their family. This brings us to the conclusion of our show on the role of caregivers. Hope you found it informative. And keep in mind that replays of the show can be viewed on the Probate Nation website. On behalf of the Probate Nation, thank you for visiting with us.